Hello, listeners. I'm Timstradamus, and it's
Friday.
And with me, as always, is my talented and beautiful co-host, Voyse.
Good morning, Timstradamus, and welcome all listeners to Friday. You know the hardest part about Fridays? You're so close to freedom.
Yes, that is very true. Voyse and I enjoy reading and talking about stories from the internet that are interesting, funny, and dramatic. Because of our love of stories, we've come together and created this channel to share with you those experiences.
And hopefully give you some food for that.
Well, why don't we jump right into the stories while I enjoy my morning gababoo. What did you make today?
Ooh, so I made you a hibiscus tea. Well, it's got hibiscus, rooibos, raspberry leaves, and some dried strawberries.
Oh, this sounds and smells amazing. 10 out of 10. 5 out of 5.
No, you've raised the bar. 10 out of 10.
Yeah, this is really good.
Well, for any listeners wanting to follow along, all story links are in the description below. For our first story, am I the a-hole for not allowing my son to go on a trip with his mom's boyfriend? Recently, my 13-year-old son asked if he could miss one of our weekends together. He had been invited by his mom's boyfriend to go with him and his sons to Alaska for a week. Legally, I am entitled to custody of him every other weekend, and he is my only child that still regularly attends these visits. My oldest two sons, 21 and 19, rarely make the time to see me anymore, and my two daughters, 17 and 15, seem to be busy with their own things, and recently I've only been seeing them every other month. My youngest child is the only one who is normally very happy to spend the weekend with me. Their mom and I separated in 2016, and in early 2021, she started dating her new partner. From my viewpoint, the kids seem to like him, and he also has 4 kids of his own, with 3 different women. My youngest son particularly seems to enjoy spending time with him, and he likes to tell me some of the things they get up to together. I can admit I occasionally feel jealous with him bonding with another man so easily. When my son brought up the trip to Alaska, he told me his mom had agreed to let him go as long as I also allowed it because the trip was scheduled for during one of my weekends. I told him no for several reasons. Firstly, I do not know the boyfriend all that well and don't feel comfortable leaving my son in his company. You may argue that my ex does know him well, but I can't say I 100% trust her judgment in men. I have heard some unsavory things from mutual friends about her boyfriend. Secondly, from what I understand, some parts of the trip could be dangerous and too physically exhausting for my son who isn't used to some of the activities. They will be hiking, survival camping, whitewater rafting, and hiking glaciers. This all sounds fun, sure, but also dangerous. I worry about him being in situations he could potentially be badly hurt, especially as neither parent will be with him. Finally, I hate to say it, but I am legally entitled to this weekend, and he needs to learn he can't just bail on things he's committed to because something better came up. If I don't see him that weekend, it will be a whole month before I get to see him again because I doubt his mom will let me rearrange to the next weekend. He was upset, but seemed to understand where I was coming from. He sulked for the rest of the day before he went home. His mom texted me asking if I was serious about my decision and assured her I was and listed out my reasons why. She told me I would regret my choice and that I was being an ass to our son. My mom also thinks I might end up regretting this decision. However, I'm confident that he'll quickly get over it. I'm going to make sure my son and I have a great time that weekend, and I'm sure there will be other trips he can go on with the boyfriend in the future with his mom present or when he's older. Am I the a-hole?
What a fantastic possible to start Friday off with.
Thank you.
Wow. So let's get started with all of the facts. So it sounds like OP has at least, 5 kids? 2 girls, 3 boys.
Correct.
Okay. None of the other 4 children like to see him because he says it. One's like 21, the other one's 19. He's got a 16-year-old and I think like a 14-year-old somewhere in there. And none of them want to see him ever. There's probably a reason. I just find it.
I can tell you what his reasons are.
Oh, let's hear it.
My older kids have things that they would rather be doing and friends they would rather be seeing. Although I admit my older boys in particular have always favored their mom to me. I would gladly take more custody of them if I had the opportunities, but courts favor mothers.
He sounds like he doesn't like to take accountability for how his kids feel about him through his actions. And it speaks volumes, especially because now he's kind of, and I feel bad for the youngest, because it feels like the youngest has had to shoulder the burden of being the last kid he can suck energy from, because the other ones won't tolerate it.
Oh, are you calling him a energy vampire?
Yes, he is a Colin Robinson. So his 13-year-old in the story just got invited to go on a week-long Alaskan survival trip.
Correct.
And it sounds dope as hell. He's going with his mom's boyfriend. And they've been together a little bit now.
Possibly.
A couple years, I think.
OP actually says in the comments they don't live together, though.
He has a lot of weird comments he makes throughout this thing. He disregards everyone but himself, which is probably why his kids have put him on the lonely island that he seems to be floating on right now. The mother says he can go, but he has to ask his father as well. Now, unfortunately, Papa says no, because it happens to land on his visitation weekend. You couldn't have just let the kid go and enjoy a week with his, I guess in this case, they would be his future siblings.
But wait, he's being left all alone with the boyfriend.
That couldn't be trusted.
And his ex. You can't trust her choice in men. She clearly married him.
Yeah, there's a lot. Like I said, all these weird comments he makes towards everything around him. He said his son sulks, but that he'll get over it. We'll bounce back and we'll have the greatest father-son day ever.
But he doesn't tell us what.
Yeah. You know what's interesting is his mother comes out of the woodwork and goes, look, you're probably going to regret doing that to your son. If anyone's on your side, you'd think you'd at least listen to your mother. You've had 2 people that are not going on this trip telling you you're going to regret telling your son that he can't go.
He's holding on so tightly that he's almost smothering his child.
He's suffocating them all out because he did it with his other 4 children. And he's still not seeing it. They're not hanging out with you because they have other things to do. Because we all can make time for our parents.
Oh, yes.
It's if you want to that matters.
Correct.
And he's not understanding that. He's looking at us, oh, well, they have other things in their lives. I think deep down, though, he probably understands. And you're right. He's holding on too tight now. He's forcing his son to miss out on what sounds like an amazing trip. Something that he can go and do and bond with other people. I hate that he says, I'm jealous of another male and how quickly it is for my son to want to hang out with him. Why would you have that feeling?
I can understand the jealousy when you feel like somebody could be encroaching on that type of father model.
I can't. I would only look at that as going, my son's about to have a really dope time. I only hope for his safety.
I think that's the problem. He's thinking about that before he's thinking about his son being happy.
He's got a weird headspace. I can understand why, again, everyone's distancing themselves from him. And he needs to go get himself some help. Because it sounds like his controlling nature, because it is controlling. He's using his... I hate that he sits there and tells a kid, this is how I'm going to teach him. He has to follow through with mandated things.
The thing is, and I think here's the one bit that I'm more upset about, his son didn't decide to have that court mandated visitation.
Yep.
That was something between his parents. Now he's trying to decide something, and rather than say, hey, is there another weekend that you and I can hang out then? He doesn't even leave the door open for that.
Yep. He says, nope, this is my decision, and you're going to deal with the consequences of it. And that really sucks. And yes, OP, you will 100% regret what you're doing to your son. He's going to see how petty you are. You're 100% the a-hole. And I hope that there's enough time between when you wrote this and when that trip happened. Does he give us any updates? Does he see the light on this one? And
no, unfortunately, there's nothing to it like that.
I just don't understand as a dad how you could sit there and take anything away from any child like that. An opportunity to have an interesting experience in your life. Why go that far out of your way? You're punishing the kid for something that you're definitely holding still against your wife. because he goes throughout this entire thing saying how suspect anything she does is, and anyone she picks is wrong. And you sound bitter. You need to go get yourself into some counseling so you too can move forward and start developing healthy relationships with your family and hopefully someone in your future. But if you keep going down this path, I promise you, that lonely island that you dug out for yourself is only going to get lonelier.
Well, the consensus is that our OP is definitely the a-hole. And a lot of the viewpoints on that you've really already spoken out about. I'll just go ahead and add just a tad more. And I think here there stems to be a really fine line that he's drawn, at least in my view, when it comes to how he sees his children. He says his youngest child is the only one who is normally very happy to spend the weekend with him. And that, I feel, speaks a lot, volumes of all 5 children. He's the only one that seems to be very happy. I bet you at one point they were all very happy to spend time with him. And somewhere along the way, he alienated those relationships.
He probably was very bitter about his wife when they were around him.
And that's where, for me, when I've read through this post, he sounds very catty.
Yes, he does.
And when you have somebody that's very catty, generally they tend to think very selfishly. It's all about me. So I'm wondering if maybe somewhere along the way, his kids were telling him at one point in time about happy things that they were experiencing somewhere else, exactly like his current son is doing, that's spending time with him now, right? He's expressing his happiness, and it wasn't with his dad, it was with someone else. And it doesn't matter who it has to be. In this case, he says his kids are more happy, at least his oldest ones are more happy spending time with their friends than with me. And now he sees the son that seems to enjoy spending time with him is now being more happy spending time without him than with him.
Yeah, he sounds like one of those people when they hear about someone else having fun, if it wasn't with them, they get upset about the situation.
I guess now talking it out loud, he really does sound narcissistic.
It borders on that. It should speak volumes to you as a parent. Like, I'm shocked. He's a father of 5, and I don't understand where the growing didn't happen.
I find it funny because there were some commenters that says, when is it that an ex gets to know your current anybody's partner at all? Like, that generally is extremely rare. Usually when relationships are cut off, they really are cut off from each other, and it's nobody's business what's going on in it.
Yeah, I just hope he has some reflection on this and read those comments to go get himself some help.
Agreed. Well, let's go ahead and head into our next story and see what you think about this one. Would I be the a-hole if I exposed my boyfriend to his mom and sister? So me, 20 female, and my boyfriend, 18 male, have been together for 4 months. In those 4 months, he has done some questionable stuff. We met on Tinder, and after 2 dates, I fell in love with him. He made me feel safe and calm. Then one day, I have a dinner with him and his mom drops his real age in the conversation. They were talking about child support laws and stuff like that. In the Netherlands, the laws for child support is that you get them until 23 years old. That surprised me a lot. I forgave him for it, because I have lied as well about my age when I was younger. He still lives with his mom, but we plan on moving in together. Then I found out a few months ago that he sent flirty and spicy texts to one of his female friends. We got in an argument about it and he blocked her. But I kept the pictures I took of the conversation. Now he has done it again, twice, but with another girl. So would I be the a-hole if I showed his mom the texts and send them to his sister?
Okay, so let's get into this story. OP is 20. She has a boyfriend that she believes at the time is over at least 23 years of age.
Correct.
Because she's explaining that they are talking with his mother at the table about child support laws in the Netherlands. And through her mother reveals that 23 is about the age the cutoff happens. I guess through all these stories, she finds out that her boyfriend is in fact only 18.
A little shocking.
Yeah, kind of a little bit of a big lie.
That wasn't like 1 or 2 years off.
Yeah.
For over 5 years at least.
Kind of a little bit of a lie, he told. So I guess the next thing she points out to us is that her boyfriend is sending saucy texts to, I guess, another random girl. And she has the receipts for it. They have a confrontation about it, and I guess they're still dating after that.
Correct.
And I guess she forces him to delete. By the way, if you have to do that with someone in a relationship, if you have to force them not to cheat on you, don't be in the relationship. So I guess a little bit of time passes and then he commits it again. She says that she finds out he's texted another girl saucy things. And now she's asking Reddit, is it okay that she rats out her boyfriend to his mom and his sister? Now, personally, the only thing that matters to me is that you understand that fundamentally you do not have a relationship with this person. Now, I don't know where you're coming from when you want to rat him to his family. If it's just like a petty move to put a cherry on the top of the relationship and say goodbye, or is it you thinking that by ratting him out, that his mom and his sister will talk some sense into him and stop him from cheating on you more? I don't know where you're coming at, but what I'm telling you, regardless of which one you think that is, it's not the right answer. You need to walk away from that relationship. So I believe at the end of the day, you're not doing yourself a service. I think you would be the a-hole by doing it. I understand the funny petty behind it and getting that, but I don't know if that's what you're doing it for. I think you're misguided in thinking that you can fix the relationship by having his mom and sister guilt him into not cheating. But that's just who he is right now in his life. That's not a relationship. Get yourself out of it. Go find someone else worthy of your love and time.
Well, the consensus is that she would be the a-hole if she actually did this. There's a lot of individuals that said this screams of just not healthy at all. You've only been with him for 4 months, and you say that after 2 dates, you've fallen in love with him? That's extremely fast. And there's no time to really truly build that connection that you need when it comes to like a long-term relationship. Now, when it came to people wanting to know why, unless you're trying to do this for petty, she actually came out and said she only wants to show the messages because she wants advice from her boyfriend's mother and sister on how to fix this.
Oh, see, that's what I said.
Yes, that's why I was so surprised you actually caught on that. Now, a lot of people said that you can't fix people.
Nope.
It doesn't work that way. They are who they are, and you are who you are. And if the relationship's not healthy, then you should just let it go.
Yep.
Now, she actually puts in the comments section that in approximately 2 weeks from the time of the post, because the post for us has only been out a few days, 2 weeks from the time that she's posted this, she's going to actually see her therapist and I guess seek his advice. However, she actually contradicts herself inside the comment section. And when some individuals were saying that she should break things off and cut the relationship short, she actually put down, "We are still together because I have difficulty breaking things off. I talked about it with my mom and therapist and they both advised heavily against it, so I won't be doing it. I, for the life of me, can't imagine that a mom and a therapist would say for you to be in a toxic relationship is the best thing. And if that's the case, when you have so many people telling you that it's not healthy for you to be in that type of relationship, it might be time for you to seek another therapist out."
Yes.
At least a second opinion, because clearly there's something so jarring. For me, as I said, they've only been together for 4 months. They're planning on moving in. He lied about his age. I think this just screams of so messy and unhealthy.
I'm shocked that the mother would say that that's okay and
See,
just
this
to
is
stay
where
in it.
this is where I don't know if it's truly her mother that's saying it or if it's her telling us. Because for me,
is she trying to justify it to the internet? Like, obviously my mom and my therapist are saying it's good, so I'm good, guys.
But see, that's where one of her lies is caught. She said she wouldn't even be able to talk to her therapist until 2 weeks from now.
Okay, got it.
So I'm like, if in the few hours between you've done this.
So we're saying she's completely lying about that.
I think that when you're trying to make sure that things aren't broken off because you want to keep a relationship, you're more than willing to lie to yourself to make it true.
That is very true. I feel bad for this girl because it sounds like she's not seeing it for what it is.
I think she'll have to, unfortunately, go through this path herself because she clearly has where she's made up her mind on some things. And it won't matter if 100 people said it on Reddit or if 1,000. It needs to be something that she's ready to do herself and that she's strong enough to do herself.
You can guide people, but they have to walk the path sometimes on their own. So sorry to hear about this type of story, though. He's already got a ton of red flags, but hopefully it'll teach her to look out for the bad stuff in the future.
I hope so.
I mean, she's only 20. You know what I mean? Like, that's
still a baby.
They're babies. But please don't sign up for something that you think you can change someone in. It's the tale as old as time. People thinking they can fix each other. You cannot do that.
Well, let's go on to our next story and see what's happening at school. Am I the a-hole for asking my daughter questions to verify whether she was really telling the truth about being bullied at school? I, 38 male, have a daughter, 10 female. She is a really nice girl, but she has always acted a little repulsed by boys. But she is friends with one boy. However, that boy is the only boy in her friend group. She would always say things like, the boys in her class are dirty. School is out right now, but will be starting next month, and I was talking to her about whether she was looking forward towards going back. She said she likes her teacher in class but prefers summer and claimed that the boys made fun of her and that it made her sad. I have always tried to teach her to look out for bias in case she only notices it when the boys do dirty things and ignores it when the girls do them. I was obviously concerned and asked her if she ever told her teacher about it, and she said no because it happens when teachers are not looking and she does not want to get in trouble for lying. So I asked her follow-up questions about what they did, and she mentioned many things like putting snot in her hair, mocking how she dresses. She likes girly clothes, but I am sure many other girls in her class do that too. This seems almost outrageous, and I know kids like to omit the other side of the story, so given her views on boys, I was suspecting maybe she was also making fun of them. I asked her if she had done anything to them first, and she denied it, and if she was sure they were really being mean or just having some fun and being friendly. She got upset and ran off and accused me of not believing her, and now I feel like an a-hole. I never said that I don't believe her. I just wanted to be sure and try to gather the other side of the story, since I assumed there was a reason she would not tell the teachers. She has never come back with bruises or anything, but sometimes has come back with footprints on her dress, which I just assumed were from play, and once had gum and glue in her hair. My wife is also upset at me and wants to speak to the school, but I do not want to embarrass myself in case she started it or something. Am I the a-hole?
Well, that's another spouse of the myth-bow of bad parenting. So let's collect the facts. OP is 37, 38?
38.
He has a daughter who is 10. OP says that his daughter is telling him that she's being bullied at school. Labels out exactly what goes on. Remember, we have to tell ourselves these are 10-year-olds, and bullying does happen at that age. Happens very early on. And his response to his daughter is by calling her, basically, a liar. He's going out of his way to make sure that his daughter doesn't see things biasedly. I'm perturbed by that because it doesn't matter if it's male or female. Your daughter was getting bullied. It should have stopped there. It doesn't matter who is committing it. You should have believed her.
Hold on. In the comments section, she doesn't expressly say that she was bullied, though.
You know, you're a clown of a parent. What you've taught your daughter is she can't trust you when the going gets tough. Because all this sounded like was he was defending the boys. She said she's coming home from school and she sees that on her dress. There are shoe marks on it. And he just assumes that off, that there was glue in her hair, that there was gum in her hair. And you didn't put two and two together to go, oh, wait a second, she is getting bullied. No.
Or let me talk to the teachers and find out what happened.
You just assume that maybe your daughter did it to herself? That these are just playground happenings? Man, you missed the mark on this one. It sounded like it was an inconvenience for you to be a real dad. You didn't want to go confront people. In this case, yes, you definitely need to go to the school. You definitely need to get in touch with the principal and the teacher.
He says it in the comments that he plans to.
That is your responsibility to your kids, to make sure they're safe, mom or dad. But when you were called on, you looked at your daughter and called her a liar to her face. At 10, boy, you're leaving some scars. You're teaching her that it's 100% not okay to tell the truth.
So the thing is, he didn't necessarily say that she was a liar, but the fact
You
that
don't
she's
have
10
to
years
say
old
it. It's your actions.
and his interrogation of her.
And that sent the message that your truth, no matter what it is, you are guilty until proven innocent. So, OP, you are 100% the a-hole. I hope you grow from this situation, because if you think this is as bad as it's going to get at 10, get ready, because you got middle school to deal with and you got high school to deal with.
Well, the consensus was that he is definitely the a-hole. A lot of commenters equated this to her call out saying, "Please help me, I'm being bullied." And him saying, "What did you do to cause this?" I think as any parent, you should always take all sides of a story.
Sure.
If you're, of course, being told something from a child, they're always going to give it to you through their perspective. And sometimes it's a little one-sided. Now, the difference is, rather than him taking it up with the school to find out with parents or whoever's involved what truly happened, he takes it up with his daughter. And she feels the brunt of his, as you said, him calling her a liar. Now, I find it ironic that he says his daughter never calls it bullying. Well, that's because I don't think you've ever taught her what true bullying looks like. If anybody's being cruel to you and all that you say is that they're dirty because it's the only thing that you can really hit them back with, because you won't get in trouble for that. Clearly, the bullying extends beyond just those kids, because this little girl sounds like she's been shut down. You can't...
Yeah, she doesn't tell them because she doesn't want to get in trouble. Because
Correct.
he's not doing it in front of people. She understands that
nuance.
Yes, she definitely understands that nuance.
And I can tell you, when I was 10, trying to understand a bias is an extremely abstract and difficult concept. I think a lot of parents don't appreciate that their child cannot understand sometimes these nuanced and abstract sort of thinking. That comes with time and age. When it comes to a little girl, a 10-year-old girl, you said you've apparently been teaching her about bias, but does she truly even understand what that word is and the depths of that and the implications? Apparently, she's starting to understand what it feels like for her father not to listen to her. Well, I hope that this father really steps up because, as you said, he's got a long journey ahead of him.
Yep, your kids need your support, not you judging the validity of the story they're telling you.
Agreed. Well, let's go ahead and head into our next story. Am I the a-hole for checking my husband's dash cam footage on his car without his consent? I, 34 female, live with my husband, 37 male, and my daughter, 7 female. My daughter and I recently went on a short trip out of state while my husband stayed, as he had work and was supposed to look after our dog. On the last day of our trip, we got a call from my husband, who was acting distraught and said that our dog Ellie had run away and that he could not find her. He claimed she just bolted away from him in the park into some bushes and he could not find her. Our dog is quite small, a mini poodle mix and almost 13 years old. She is still active, but it is really unlike her to run away from us, and I was suspicious but chose to believe my husband, and me and my daughter were in grief but did not want to blame him. When we came back home, he seemed surprisingly okay, unlike us. Ever since the pandemic, my husband started working from home, and he has always been annoyed at how much attention we give Ellie and hated how Ellie begged to sit on our laps and his while he worked. A few days later, we got a call from an animal rescue in a neighboring state quite far from us that she had been found. I picked the phone, and it was on our landline, which we almost never use these days, but was the contact on the microchip. I told my husband, and he just said, "That's great, I'm so happy." But it felt kind of blunt and insincere. I said it is strange that she got so far, and he responded that someone must have stolen her and then abandoned her. This made little sense to me as to why that would happen. When he was out drinking with his buddies, I copied the videos from his dash cam for the days I was away and saw that he had indeed taken Ellie far out of state and clearly dropped her in front of his car, thrown a frisbee-like object into a field, yelled fetch, and drove off without her. I was livid and confronted him, and he just stupidly muttered how he dropped her there so she could find a farm and have a better life. And then the next day, got really angry at me for viewing his dash cam and called me and my daughter a-holes. Am I the a-hole?
Oh my Lanta. Friday.
Spicy Friday.
Okay, well, let's get into this one. OP is in her 30s. She has a husband and a daughter. Her and her daughter go out for a trip, I guess?
Correct. Out of state.
Over the weekend. And so his only responsibility while they're on the trip is to watch the dogs and work from home. So I guess at some point during the trip, he calls OP and tells her that the dog, who is a 13-year-old poodle mix, while they're walking, I guess, at a park, books it into the woods. Because, 13-year-old dogs book it into the woods and run away from you. I find that super hard to believe.
So it's a sprightly dog.
Yeah. So they're obviously in grief because that's a part of the family. That's a 13-year-old dog.
And they're still mindful not to try and blame him
Sure.
for this incident.
They're going out of their way not to. So they get home. She says some things feel kind of off because they're grieving and he's just nonchalantly going about his day.
Sorry for your loss.
Yeah. Sorry the dog's not here. This is where it gets interesting. I guess Dum Dum forgot that there's chips in dogs, especially if you care about them. So that way, events like this, when they do happen, there is a chance to retrieve your animal. So they get a call about a state away, and it's from an animal shelter because their dog, Ellie, has been found.
A chip.
Yeah. And she says she looks over at her husband, and he's like, oh, yay.
What's wrong, honey?
No real emotion outside of the act that he was putting on. So she finds that suspicious, and everyone would find that suspicious. So she has to think to herself, I know my husband has a dash cam. I wonder how the dog got that far away. And I guess she asked this question to him, and his reply was, someone must have stolen the dog and drove it all the way across state lines just so that way they could abandon it. Okay.
Likely case.
I'm seeing what he's putting down, but I'm not. So she obviously smells the bullshit in the story like anyone would. She realizes to herself he has a dash cam. He goes and does something for the afternoon.
Goes out drinking.
With his friends. Okay. So she goes and downloads the footage. Do I have a problem with that? Especially when you've acted the way you have. No, I don't. You've given me cause. Because in the beginning, she did trust him. She went out of her way to not blame him for any of it.
Blame or question him.
But if you're going to act suspicious,
continuously,
obviously, if there is footage that I think could shed light on anything, yes, I'm going to use it. She downloads the footage and then she sees that he drives with Ellie to a other location very far away, drops Ellie in front of the car, throws a frisbee, and then drives away. You're a scummy person. That dog obviously meant a lot to your wife and her daughter. You've had it for 13 years, and that's what you're doing? And then, after all of this happens, she confronts him, and his rebuttal to all of this is, well, I did it so she could go find a farm. When confronted, that's what he gets you with?
I believe he was probably drunk because he had been drinking with his friends. But I guess the next day, he's actually angry at her for looking at his dash cam.
That's the other part of this that's very concerning, is his shame now is turned into anger because of something he did. And now is blaming his wife, ROP, because she actually has the evidence to show that he's a piece of shit. OP, you are not the a-hole. You were given enough cause to have to take a look at that. I completely support what you did. I would definitely reconsider what's going on with your guys' relationship, because if he thought that that was an okay thing to do to your guys' pet, I wonder what else he thinks is okay to do.
Well, let me give you the consensus. She is definitely not the a-hole. In fact, she actually puts in a comment, "Oh, I will never trust him again, and I am going to be seeing a lawyer soon. I might have a lot to lose as I earn significantly more than him."
Dump him. Money can be replaced.
Now, let me go ahead and actually put down, because There were some individuals in the comments that says, is there anything else? She seems to allude to it, that she saved documents and records and other bits of information. And she says loads, but that's beyond the scope of this discussion.
Oh, wow.
So it sounds like she's potentially building her case. I would just like to go ahead and shine a light on this one little thing that I think is probably a really big thing that people tend to overlook. When someone has done something that is wrong, there tends to be two types of people that react to that. The first one is you have a person who accepts it. They were wrong and they'll try and make better on it. And then you have the second type of person, the one that gets angry because they don't want to be wrong. Because whatever you say, they're not wrong, you're the wrong one. I feel like in this case, he played this role probably a little too well, because the moment that I guess he was sober enough, he tried to reverse the roles of what he did that was really bad.
Yeah.
And tried to accuse her, to shift that blame. A lot of people don't realize this is how a lot of skeezy people tend to act.
Yeah.
Another key point is this guy is very jealous based on her comments. Apparently, he's always been extremely jealous of this dog because her and her daughter give it apparently way too much attention. And he's actually said that his daughter loves the dog more than him. It almost feels like he's got a complex. I mean, she says in the comments, especially the last one that I read out loud to you, that she makes significantly more than him. And then on top of that, he potentially feels like they love the dog more than him. I feel like he sort of lost his way into seeing his own value.
He's also a liar and a narcissist.
Agreed.
So I'm not even going to say he lost his value. I mean, I get what you're saying, but there's a lot of other bad with this gentleman.
Oh, definitely.
It isn't like one of those stories where you want to hope that he sees better in himself. He drove across state lines to drop a dog off, said it ran away on its own, got confronted on it, doubled down on it, and then tried to make her feel like it was an invasion of his privacy. Nah.
You're right.
He's a clown.
He is. Now, let's go to our last story. I'm excited. Am I the a-hole for telling my girlfriend to stop asking for marriage? I, 34 male, and my girlfriend, 27 female, have been together for 6 years. We have 2 kids, a 4-year-old boy and a 2-year-old girl. She got pregnant with our son while on birth control. My girlfriend wanted to be married before having kids because she didn't want to be a baby mama. I don't care what comes first. I do want to get married, but there's no order of preference, and I wasn't opposed to having a child when we found out. I told her I wanted her to keep it, but it was up to her, and I'll support her in whichever decision she chose. I earn more than her, so providing for my family wasn't an issue. She decided to keep our son. I supported her and adjusted my schedule so that I'll be able to look after my son when she went back to work. She went back to work, but got pregnant again with my daughter. I won't even try to make an excuse on how that happened. She just got pregnant. After she gave birth, she went through postpartum depression and struggled to have a motherly connection with our daughter. At first, I didn't know it was postpartum. I felt like she resented our child and didn't want her until I talked to her mom and realized what she was going through. Now she's great with our daughter. Their bond is beautiful. She hints at this topic constantly and will show me pictures of rings, talk about friends who are married. I do want to marry her. I just want her to stop asking all the time. Last week, we attended a mutual friends gathering and they announced their engagement. My girlfriend and I extended our congrats. She didn't look jealous or sad. She looked happy for the couple. On the way home, I felt an awkward silence. I asked if she was okay. She told me to shut up and drive. The kids were present, so I didn't say anything. When we got home, she didn't speak to me. I put my daughter to sleep while she did the same with our son and went to the lounge where she was and asked her to talk to me. She said, "We have this conversation all the time. Don't act like you don't know." I realized this was another marriage topic. I told her that we shouldn't compare our lives to others. She looked at me and said, I've been with you for 6 years. You got me pregnant. I gave you 2 kids, and you can't even marry me? This shit. I got frustrated and told her to stop asking. No one asks for that. You need to wait on it. And if she wasn't talking about it all the time, I would have proposed by now. How can I even propose when it's on her mind? The day I do it wouldn't be a surprise because she's always thinking about it. While in bed, she turned her back to me. I tell her that I will marry her, and I want to marry her because I want to, not because I'm being pressured to. She ignored me and slept. Now, since then, our relationship feels different. When she talks to me, it's either about the kids or she wants me to do something. I've tried to talk to her, but all she says is she understands she can't force me. We haven't been intimate. I try to initiate or get her in the mood, but she brushes it off and says that she's tired. Am I the a-hole?
So let's get into all the facts of the story. OP is 34.
Correct.
He has 2 kids with this lovely lady, and she is 27?
Correct.
Okay. He says throughout their relationship, she's been telling him that she wants to get married. That seems to be his biggest problem with all of it, is he, for some reason, is looking at it as, I get to call the shots on my time. And he says, I'm not going to get married to her until she stops bringing it up. Is she supposed to not bring it up when she's about to walk away from the relationship? And is that when you're going to spring the question on her? When she's had it up to here with what it sounds like is you, I mean, for lack of a better term, pussyfooting around the situation? That woman's given you 2 children. It sounds like you live under the same roof. You're sharing a life together. Now, he may have a different viewpoint on what marriage means, and I've heard all of the different talking points under the sun for why people don't get married and have children. And you're allowed to be in those type of relationships if both parties agree that that's how it functions. That is not how this relationship sounds like it is. They end up going to a surprise engagement party. And I know as he sees this happen, I'm certain that this popped up in his head and he knew that this was going to be a conversation that they were going to have later. There's no way you don't. And if you're in a relationship that is like this, you definitely need to talk to your partner and start setting expectations, because it sounds like he hasn't had plans for that, but she's being strung along. That's the issue now. For whatever reason, he doesn't want to get married. And the thing is, I can respect that. If you don't want to get married to your partner, you're allowed to have that. But what you're not allowed to do is lead someone on. Man or woman, you should have owned up to your partner and said, look, that's just not something I want to do. Because that's where it sounds like he's coming from. Because I can't believe that at the back end of his mind, he's going, as soon as she stops asking me, then I pop the question. You've had 6 years and 2 kids.
I can't imagine that she's asked this question every single day.
I mean, if you listen to him, that's kind of what it sounds like. Is she's constantly bringing it up. I just wish that he'd been more forefront with his wants too. If that's not part of the equation, then you should have let her know. And so that way she could make a real decision on her life when it comes to you. Because you, in my mind, you've strung her along. And every single time someone proposes or a wedding comes up or however other events that come up that involve marriage, man, this conversation is just going to keep coming up and get worse. You guys definitely need to go get into some type of counseling, learn how to talk to each other, because there's a huge misunderstanding of what it is to be in a healthy relationship. Because if he's doing that with marriage, what else has been like, because I said so, or because you asked for it, I'm not going to give it to you? That's an unhealthy way of looking at any decision in your life.
I agree.
I'm just going to say you are the a-hole, not for not wanting to marry her. Like I said, I can get you if that's where you're coming from. But you definitely are the a-hole for stringing her along and not letting her know that that's exactly how you feel. Because through your actions, that's what it looks like to not only just me, but to the mother of your children.
Well, the consensus isn't overwhelming. He's the a-hole. The way that one commenter actually equated it says, "This reminds me of my teenage daughter. When I tell her to empty out the dishwasher, and she says, I'm not going to empty it out because now you've nagged me. So if I would say nothing, you're going to do it?"
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point.
The way that I personally see this is, they've been together for 6 years. 2 years into their relationship, I imagine that she probably never really brought up marriage until she had her first kid.
Well, and she did it through what they said was birth control. So that wasn't a planned pregnancy either.
But he was happy with it.
Sure.
And now for her, she's dealing with everything concerning her body. She has a child. As far as we know, she didn't deal with postpartum that first time, but we don't truly
I didn't even
know for sure.
touch that yet. 2
years. I bet you she's probably still pretty calm about it because she thinks sometime after we have this child, he'll definitely propose to me. 2 years later, he says she gets pregnant. And it's not because of the birth control and anything else. It's because we just had a kid. She still doesn't get that question. Now they're 2 kids in. He knew it was important to her. But now that she's had a second child, her postpartum depression is probably something she can't fight off this time. And it's so bad that she disconnects from that child. Because for her, it is a second child. And now there's no proof that that man that sleeps next to her and helps take care of their kids truly loves her because he hasn't even popped the question. I imagine that probably takes an emotional toll when your body's undergoing so many changes. I imagine this was probably one of the first and foremost things. And I don't know what he said to help her through her postpartum, or if it was just a combination of him and her mother when he realized that she was going through postpartum. But I imagine this whole thing, if it's something that he says she constantly brings up, is one of the reasons why she was in that state to begin with. I think the stringing along, as you said, was probably worse than what we probably truly understand. Because throughout all of these times, her body's been changing. She's been dealing with not just trying to hold herself together, because she's even trying to do it now. And then for him to turn around and say, but now she no longer wants to be intimate with me. Why is it that she needs to be physically intimate with you when you won't do for her what is mentally intimate to her? I think for a long time, we've had this stereotype where men derive intimacy through physical contact.
Sure.
And women derive intimacy through romance. In my mind, I've always seen it through a mental capacity. But I think that's a very skewed point. I think both sides needs a combination of both. And when one is lacking the other, when they think that, hey, it's fine, everything's fine, so, I mean, you're still alive and eating and have a roof over your head and I provide that, right? So you owe me this. I think that's a very disgusting way to look at it. And that's kind of how he's acting.
I think at the end of the day, the story really does come down to respect and having it for one another and being able to tell each other the expectations. You stringing her along is the worst part about the story. If it's in the air, if it's always the elephant in the room, you're saying it's affecting now the way you guys are operating around each other. At that point, you definitely need to go get in some type of counseling, and you definitely need to go figure out what is the real reason why you're having the hang up. If it's simply because you don't want it and it's not something you want in your life, you're allowed to have that. But you have to tell your partner.
Amen.
Was that the last story?
That was the last story.
Well, that was an interesting way to end off Friday. All your stories were spicy.
Thank you.
Well, as our stories come to a close, don't forget, you see in the world what you carry in your heart.
If you have enjoyed listening to us read and talk about today's stories, please rate, subscribe, and turn on notifications for new content. We are regularly posting on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays.
As always, listeners, we look forward to hearing your opinions in the comments below.
Well, listeners, I'll leave you a question we always do every Friday. What are you doing this weekend? We're going to enjoy a farmer's market.
Yes, we are. And remember, if you post it, maybe we'll see it on the internet.
Happy Friday!
Happy Friday.